r/askreddit, what was your biggest shit, no going back now moment? Walking down the ramp of a C-17 in Bagram, Afghanistan. Days later I'd be at an outpost in the middle of fuck all Afghanistan, doing patrols and occasionally having tea with locals who also shot at us sometimes. It's boring out there I guess. I learned a lot though. Naan is dope, all doggers are good, and kids are the same no matter what continent you're on. My worst co-worker was one I worked with when I was a cashier at Walmart. She approached me and asked me to cash out her paycheck. I was still new at the job and never got training on how to do that function. She was sympathetic, so she walked me through how to do it. Transaction over and done. I go on about my day. I get called back a couple of days later by my managers and they circled me in an office and accused me of stealing. After tears, videotapes, and telling them what happened, they told me that apparently this co-worker of mine had stolen not only from me, but several other people that day as well. They just wanted to confirm I wasn't in on the deal. Fuck Walmart, and fuck that bitch for almost getting me arrested. This one is quite literally a not going back moment. As a Boy Scout at summer camp we would always take large group hikes on the last day of camp. This particular camp in West Texas was located in the middle of a deep canyon and cut through with a small stream. The day before our hike day it rained a bit but not too much to make us worry. It was drizzling in the morning when we got up but we were Boy Scouts so that obviously didn't stop us. So our long hike had us cross the small stream up the canyon maybe 10-15 times, no problem, and everything went great. After a while we get to a medium-sized pond that we all decided to go swimming in. That was fun and we all had a blast. We get out and dressed and we keep going farther up a hill to continue our hike. We get to the top and we hear this wonderfully ominous rushing noise. We look over a ledge and see that the water in the stream was moving a bit faster than we remembered. A friend and I volunteer to go back and see what's happened. A flash flood had ripped through the area we had just left moments before. The water in the pond was at least 7 feet higher than it was 5 minutes before, and it was covered in foam and rapidly overflowing. We decided as a group to test our luck and go back to see if we could get out, but the last stream crossing had turned into a very fast moving river crossing. Needless to say, we were fucked. We literally couldn't go back, and we had to wait a long time to get help and get to the now almost flooded camp. Honestly, I went on a canoe trip with an dad at summer camp a few years back and the rain took the class 2 rapids up to 3.5 or whatever and we weren't even supposed to go over them anyway. Every single canoe flipped but me and my partners, but we took on so much water from the splashing that it straight up sunk. Spent the next 2 hours swimming up and downstream trying to catch all the gear that spilled. Water ain't no joke. I ran away from an abusive home at 19. I called my dad while I was at work later that day to let him know I was okay and not to come looking for me. He's a narcissist and I was so scared he'd tell the authorities something crazy so they'd track me down for him. Like my boyfriend had kidnapped me. I'd left my car keys on the kitchen table, so he couldn't charge me with stealing it, as he bought it for me, emptied my bank account, because he was friends with the small bank owner, and taken everything I could with me, and that was a pretty big one. He said you'll never make it without me and my money, and I just said I can't wait to find out. That was 7 years ago now, and I'm making it. Giving my notice to my boss last Friday. I'm across the country from many friends and family, and I have no job lined up. If I stay here I'll wind up a shell of a person. So I'm quitting and moving back home with only my savings and the grace of my family to catch me. No going back now. Wish me luck. Got a general anesthetic for wisdom teeth removal. After waiting what felt like an eternity in a little prep room, I was just thinking about using the restroom just for something to do when I'm swarmed by nurses or whatever. Before I could react, they stuck things all over me and one of them got the drugs in me and I could immediately feel effects. I remember vividly thinking, well fuck, no going back now, as they wheeled me to theater. And then the procedure and recovery went as smoothly as they could have gone. When a private got caught stealing food during my first day of army basic training, boot camp. It happened after breakfast. Someone decided to pocket a Nutrigrain bar from the cafeteria and was caught. The drill sergeant made the private eat the Nutri-Grain bar in front of the entire company, then made the private do drills exercises until he threw up. The rest of us stood at attention in the middle of a snowstorm and watched. The drill sergeant then ordered the private to pick up his vomit, stuff it into his cargo pockets, and carry it the rest of the day. He smelled like shit and looked so defeated. That's when I realized how shitty the next few months of my life were going to be. I got a letter from the Vatican declaring me excommunicated. I am 99.99999% sure it is just some shitty scam because there's a Bitcoin wallet address and it tells me that I can reconcile with God and church for a donation of $50,000 US. Given that I've never been Catholic and am considered a heretic by the Christian churches I grew up in, I'm owning it. I was laying in bed with my best friend and we were just winding down from a long day and joking around. Things got quiet and in my head I said, well, I am either going to ruin this friendship forever, or this is going to work out. I kissed her, and luckily she kissed back. We've been dating for almost 2 years now, and I am the happiest I've ever been. Me and a friend went on a trip to Hawaii and decided to go skydiving. We get geared up, attached to our respective skydivers and head up. The pilot gives the sign that it's almost time to jump. Then my skydiver goes shit. It's open. Apparently the parachute had been badly packed and had burst open, which I gathered was a problem. We had to land to get it sorted before going back up to complete the jump. It seemed like a bad sign, but we'd got up early and drove about an hour to the place, so I figured fuck it, I'm here now, may as well keep going. Fun fact, the skydivers filmed the jump and descent on GoPros. My skydiver told me after we completed the jump that he couldn't film much of my descent as there was still an issue with the parachutes and he had to keep an eye on it. I got caught skipping school right as I left the building. My school had this one door that led directly out to the sidewalk and it usually had a security guard by it due to its access to freedom. One day 3 friends and I are walking around with the intentions of using the hole I had cut in the fence to escape, but we had to walk around and wait for it to be clear. On the walk we passed the freedom door and there was no security there. I don't even know if we discussed it. I think Fonzie just kinda peeked his head out if I remember correctly, then just walked out. So we all head out. I'm last in line. Get about 10 feet from the door. 15 feet from friends and I hear get your asses back in this motherfucking school. Since I'm in the back, when everyone turns around they glance at security, then at me. In my head I'm already in deep shit, so why deal with it today? I take off running. All 3 friends take off, but I have miscalculated. I am wearing Crocs. This is where I fucked up by being my extra ass self. I stop in the middle of the road, look back at security, throw up the Jimmy 1 second pointer finger, take off my Crocs and said, 8, now I'm out, and kept running Crocs in hand. Got away clean that day. But I knew eventually they would get me. Funny thing is the cool security of the 2 definitely saw and remembered me like 2 days later and just giggled at me as I passed him in the hall. Dapped him up and that was that. But like 2 weeks later the female security caught me and was about as cool about it as you'd expect. Not cool at all. I got 5 days indoor suspension, which I didn't mind. The D-line coach was the in-school suspension teacher and a genuine friend of mine, so I got to do errands all day. Errands consisted of me showing up, then going home. Mrs. Super Cop security guard caught wind and tried to double my punishment, at which point I was put over the legal limit of missed days to graduate despite me passing all my classes every semester to this point in my senior year. Got sent to a opportunity school for kids kicked out of Miami-Dade schools and had the fucking time of my life. And since it was all on the computers and our teachers were merely there basically as IT support, all we did all day was cheat and make sure not to get 100% A's. Ended up prolonging my stay at that school after having the required credits to graduate and retook old classes to override their grade. Went from a 2.6 GPA to a 3.0 GPA and waited and learned not a fucking thing. And that's how skipping school raised my GPA.